Hi guys, and welcome to this second lesson dealing with equivalent fractions and simplified fractions. You're going to say second lesson, you've been doing these for months. Yes, I know, but it's the second lesson in this particular section. Right, if you just joined me, hi, welcome. Thanks very much for taking the time. You can probably completely ignore this first section here, which is actually for my group of kids that I'm currently teaching. And so, those of you who do know who I am, then please can you do this work from the Year 7 textbook. This scheme follows the Cambridge Essentials textbook scheme, which is, the Cambridge series is just phenomenal. And thank you very much for all the hard work you guys are doing. But before we get too carried away with excitement, let's do some recap. In the past lessons, we've been looking at what fractions are. We've looked at how to write them. So that's a half, and what they are and how they can be described, things like test results. And how we can draw them in diagrams. Now remember, drawing them in diagrams is really, really important. If you haven't watched the lesson, go back. The previous lesson is awesome. So this lesson we're looking at the idea of how to write the same fraction in lots of different ways. And we've sort of dealt with that in the previous lesson. So why am I doing it again? Well, why not? 2 times you're going to get this stuff, you'll be a gun. So back to pizza and friends. Oh, my favourite things in life, pizza and friends. And I don't mean the TV show, although the first season was very funny. Everything is about pizza. And I have no friends. Well, I do have one friend, Barry. Remember Barry? Yes, he's the guy out there who tries to make things really complicated. We hang out together. So, when I go to Pizza Hut, I like to have the Aussie Barbecue Meat Lover Special. Barry and I eat half of this. And the restaurant sometimes likes to play tricks on me. And sometimes they cut the pizza into 2. So here we go. There is my pizza. Cut into 2. This is mine. Thank you. And this is Barry's. Yes, Barry gets a half of my pizza. So we obviously have a half each. How do we know we got a half each? Because I have 1 out of the 2 pieces and Barry has 1 out of the 2 pieces. But what if they cut it into 4 pieces? What if they actually trick me and cut it into 4 pieces? Well, it would make sense that I'm going to have a piece and Barry has a piece. And then I have a piece and Barry has a piece. So that means that I am having 2 out of the 4 pieces and Barry is having 2 out of the 4 pieces. But hold on a moment. We still seem to have eaten half of that pizza. What if they cut it into 8 pieces? Yep, and yep. And again, that's a really bad cut. Right, so we always know that when we go to the restaurant, it's polite that when I have a piece, they have a piece. I have a piece, they have a piece. I have a piece, they have a piece. So, Darren has this piece, Barry has this piece. Darren has that piece, Barry has this piece. Darren, Barry, Darren, Barry. Good, all the pizzas gone. So how many pieces have I got? Well, I've eaten 4 out of the 8 pieces in total. And Barry's had 4 out, but we still seem to have eaten half. What is this 4 out of 8 business? Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to equivalent fractions. So we now have proved that a half is exactly the same as 2 out of 4, which is exactly the same as 4 out of 8. Are there others? Well, this is interesting. How do we do this? Well, mathematically, I know that to go from a half, which is the same as we've decided as 2 over 4, look what I've done to the bottom number. I've made it twice as big. Now, lots of people go, oh, you've added 2, you've added 2, you've added 2. No. Stop, don't do that. Bad. All right? With fractions, we either can multiply or divide the tops and bottom numbers. That's it. That's the best thing, and then we make sure that they stay the same size. Here then, have I multiplied the top by 2? I should Coco. And look what happens again if I have 4 on 8. How have I gone from 4 to 8? It's twice as big. Has the top become twice as big? Yes, and because I've made the top and the bottom number twice as big as each other, they're called equivalent fractions. They're the same. We can see this with pizza. So I suppose that would then mean that 8 over 16 would also be the same. Is that true? Let's check. 8 times 2 is 16. Is 4 times 2 8? It is. But what about, 16, so that will be 32. What about 24 over 32? Is that a half? Well, 16 times 2 is 32, but 8 times 2 is not 24. So actually, in this situation, that would not be an equivalent fraction because the top is actually 3 times bigger and the bottom is 2 times bigger. And nowhere in maths is that actually really a great thing. So what other examples of equivalent fractions? We don't have to deal with half. What about 2/3? what would another equivalent fraction be? Well, let's make the bottom 3 times bigger. It doesn't always have to be 2. 3 times 3 is 9. I must make sure that I times the top by 3. So 2 times 3 is 6. And lo and behold, there we go. So is 2/3 the same as 6/9? This is going to be really hard to draw as a pizza. But, dong, 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 that's really, really bad. All right, so if I eat and Barry eats and I eat, yep, I've eaten 2/3 of that pizza. What about the next one? How am I going to split this into 9? It's going to be challenging. Ooh, and okay, it should be 9 pieces there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There is, and they're almost equal. So let's just check. Darren, Barry, Darren, Barry. Oh, I've got to eat 2 pieces for every 1 piece he eats, though. Oh, that's awkward. So Darren, 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 and Barry. So let's just check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 9 for Darren. Woo. Now you're going to turn around and say, well, what did you just do there? And I'm just going to sort of sidestep the equivalent fractions. If I'm eating 2/3 of the pizza, it means for every 2 pieces I'm eating, Barry is eating 1. Does that make sense? Because 2/3 of a pizza mean for every 2 pieces I'm eating, he's only got 1 piece left. How did I know that? Well, 3 minus 2 is 1. This subject here is brilliant. It's ratios. It's awesome. It's such a great subject, but not really part of this. But equivalent fractions in maths are really, really important. Now, going from a half to 9/18, for example, is really helpful for us later on in maths when we start adding and subtracting fractions. But a lot of our answers in maths actually have to do things the other way. We have to actually turn them into their simplest form. Now, you must put all fractions into simplest form, even when you're putting them in unless you're putting them in equivalent form. Come back to later. So I'm going back to Pizza Hut. Barry and I told the restaurants to surprise us with the number of pieces they were going to cut the pizza into, and we would then work out how many pieces we'd each eat to make it fair for half each. So they came with 10 pieces. Once again, this is going to be challenging to draw, but I will give it my best. Ooh, thank goodness I didn't do art. So there's definitely 10 pieces there. Let's just check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have to have half. Now remember, half means for 1 piece that I have, Barry has 1 piece as well. Remember, how do we find? So that's my 1 piece there. And how do I find this one? We do 2 take away 1. So 1 to 1. So Darren, Barry, Darren, Barry, Darren, Barry, Darren, Barry, Darren, Barry. Now I'm really worried the amount of pizza we've eaten recently, because that's not going to be good for us. But there we go, ladies and gentlemen. We have decided that 5 out of 10, because I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 10 must be the same as a half. How do we do that? Well, if we go back to the idea of when we had a half equals 9/18, how did we get from 2 to 18? We times by 9. How do we get from 1 to 9? We times by 9. We made the top and the bottom bigger by the same amount. That made it an equivalent fraction. To simplify, we don't times by a number, we divide by a number. So 10 divided by what gives me 2? Well, 5. So we have to do the same to the top. 5 divided by 5 is 1. This stuff is awesome. Other examples of simplifying fractions? 6 on 12. All right, so what is that going to be simplified down to? Well, what's the highest number that goes into 6 and 12? What's the highest factor of 6 and 12? Well, the highest factor is actually 6. It's the biggest number that goes into both 6 and 12. So I'm going to divide the bottom by 6, and I'm going to divide the top by 6. 12 divided by 6 is 2. And 6 divided by 6 is 1. Now, you guys already knew this, because if I've got 6 out of 12, I've got to have a half. But it's the maths behind it that's really, really important. What about if I had 9 on 12? Well, 6 doesn't go into 9, so choose another number. What's the biggest factor of 12 and 9? Well, 3. 3 seems to work. So I'm going to divide both the top and bottom by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen, 3 divided by 4. Now, when you divide by the highest common factor, you will never have to simplify ever again. But sometimes doing times tables in our head is really complicated. So what if I had 18 over 42, for example? It might take a long time to find those factors. But one of the great things I can do in my head, and pretty nearly everyone in the world can do this, is I can divide by 2. I can halve a number in my head. I notice that the top number there is even. And I notice the bottom number is also even. And when my numbers are both even, I can halve them. So 18 divided by 2 is 9, and 42 divided by 2 is 21. Yay! Am I finished? Well, no, because actually I now notice my top number and my bottom number can both divide it by 3. Ooh, this is interesting. So I've divided by 2 to get to that. I've divided by 2 to get to that. Now I'm going to continue because it's not in its simplest form. So because I can divide the top and the bottom by 3, I'm going to do it. 21 divided by 3 is 7, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. And lo and behold, that's my lowest fraction. Why? Because there is no number that goes into 3 and 7 that isn't 1. Now, a lot of you go, but I can divide by 1, I can divide by 1. Yes, you can divide by 1, but what's 3 divided by 1 and 7 divided by 1? If I divide the top by 1 and I divide the bottom by 1, I actually end up with 3/7, which seems a bit pointless, really. So we tend not to divide by 1. It gives us the same thing. One other example of simplifying fractions. Well, no, this is hard. Never been done this before. Ooh, 75 over 100. Ooh, later on, big hint. Divide by 100. Awesome. 75 divided by 100. Well, they're not even numbers, but because they end in a 5 and a 0, I can divide by 5. So I'm going to divide both the top and bottom by 5. Well, 100 divided by 5, I happen to know is 20. And this is where times tables comes in really important. Those of you who sit there and go, I can't do this in my head, just learn your times tables. Yes, in junior school, you're like, I couldn't do it, it was too hard. But you're not in junior school anymore. Your brain has developed. There is a chance that you can remember this stuff. So 75 divided by 5 goes 15 times. And it just so happens that 15 and 20 can be divided again. This is awesome. They can both be divided by 5. So I'm going to divide the top and bottom by 5 as well. So 15 divided by 5 is 3, and 20 divided by 5 is 4. And once again, I get 3/4. This stuff is so, so awesome. When you are simplifying fractions, you are looking at dividing the top number, the numerator, and the bottom number by the same value. And please, please remember, what we do to the top of a fraction, we must do to the bottom if they are simplified. So, ladies and gentlemen, we took another quick jaunt through pizza, friends, chocolate, fractions, equivalents, and simplifying. Thank you so much for taking the time and watching. If you enjoyed it, subscribe. If not, I look forward to seeing you next time. Hey guys, if you've enjoyed watching this video, why not tune in and subscribe to get updates of when I do other videos. Alternatively, click this video that's coming up now, or just zip on over to MaffsGuru.com, MaffsGuru.com, where you can actually access all the videos in a nice, easy to use way.